few years ago we did a piece on the web about my sister, about Audrey,
Yeah.
or Miss Audrey, as the customers will have remembered her,
Yes.
and her remembrance of VE Day. And now we're up to another special anniversary of VE Day. It seemed right to look at it again.
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't even realise that she'd gone there until you mentioned this blog and you'd found her original typed report, which is really, really detailed. So I was fascinated because she never mentioned
She
it
never
to
did.
me
No,
at all.
no, she never did. Never did to me. I only discovered it just before that anniversary all those years ago, and thought, oh, I've never read this. Audrey was 19 when she went down on VE Day to mark those celebrations.
And she went with friends.
She went with friends, yes.
Yeah.
2 friends, brother and sister. We'd been evacuated, she and myself and my mother, out to Nebworth in Hertfordshire, while my father got the business going and worked all hours. But in 1942, when the business started, Audrey was 16 and very much wanting to leave school. She'd made up her mind that she wanted to be in the same business as my father. She said to me several years later that whatever business my father had been in, she would have joined him in it.
Well, I remember her saying this to customers, because she spent, in the latter part of her life, she spent a lot of time in the coffee room in Duke Street, as it was back in the day. And the number of times I've heard her tell that story to customers, and she would always say it didn't matter what it was. It could have been boots and shoes, and she always used that expression. It could have been boots and shoes, and there was always something else that was different. But yeah, it was clear that she wanted to work with him. Yeah,
she was a great admirer of my father, and as soon as she possibly could, she left school to join him, and she and my mother sometimes were the staff that he had. But she would have to travel up to London each day on very early, they called them workmen's trains. And she used to say when she got out of the tube station at Bond Street to go down South Molton Street, she'd wonder if the building was still there as she came out and turned the corner. And her duties, an awful lot of the work in that time was physical work, labelling and weighing coffee and putting it into tins and sealing it. But when she wasn't doing that and wasn't doing the books, because my father taught her how to manage the bookkeeping side of things, she would be on duty. The premises were in the attic, and so she could look out of the window, and across the road in South Molton Street, there was a fire point with wardens who had special instructions to look at for when the doodle bugs, the V1 rockets, were coming across in 1944. And she would be on watch, and if she saw signs, flags hoisted that they were coming or a doodlebug was coming, she'd tell my father, and he'd close down the roaster and they'd go down to the fire point.
It's hard to imagine what it must have been like.
No. That they even took work down to the fire point with them with labelling. They had labels, a whole lot of labels down there, and containers that they got to label. So while they were waiting for the all clear, they would
carry on,
paste the labels and carry on. And she was an important part of the business. She became the company secretary when we became a limited company. And she could roast coffee. We used to interchange with each other.
Although she was quite short, I remember she had a job pouring the beans into the roaster. It was quite difficult.
It was.
By the time I was working full time, she must have been about my age now, about 60.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I remember her always being very smartly dressed. And whenever you heard her coming downstairs, you knew it was her because she wore high heel
She
shoes.
did.
You could hear them clomping down
And
the
you knew
wooden
her.
staircase.
I knew her mood by the clomp.
Yes.
And of course, she would serve on the counter when it was necessary.
Yes, and deliver the
deliver
parcels to Buckingham Palace.
Yes,
she'd get all dressed up in her white gloves.
She really
and a
did
suit.
enjoy that. Yes.
Yeah, she was the best dressed delivery person we ever had, I think.
Yes, she was. True. Although we never went into the front entrance, not for delivering those
just the
parcels.
tradesman's entrance, but she cut a dash. That's for certain.
And I suspect that she timed those visits when it was changing of the guard.
Well, yeah.
Because there was quite a lot of people around in that area, Pall Mall, lining the road to see the guard marching.
You don't think she was waving with her white glove out of the window?
No, I hope she didn't.
You know, from some unsuspecting tourist could have thought, is that maybe?
Yes. She was a director, of course, and worked constantly in the business, and really until she retired. Audrey died in 2014.
Yeah, that's right.
But many customers remember her to this day.
Oh yeah. Sometimes some of the older ones come in and they're a bit confused about. They sometimes say, "I knew your mother," and I say, "I think you mean my aunt."
Yes.